reviving our country, with forward by Mr. Femi Falana SAN. I did a broadcast yesterday, and I wanted to follow up on my yesterday's discussion regarding NSAS. I'm focused more on election, and so today I just want to first start by responding to some of the questions or comments from my friends, from a few people. First of all, somebody mentioned that the fact that there are no leaders right now, it's a good thing because the government is confused. They don't even know who to arrest or who to bribe, and I think that's a fantastic point. Um, that's good, but ultimately, if we're thinking of 2023, if we're thinking of changing the system, we have to win elections. My objective here is to explain how, or to first of all, let us all know that NSAS must metamorphosize into a political movement that can compete in 2023. And I'm saying that clearly, unequivocally, that if we don't do that, it will amount to a waste of time. We will get some things, but we will not get a lot. And yesterday I talked about Egypt. I talked about other countries. I talked about other countries um, that have tried something like this. Uh, the best achievement people got was change of power. And for me, it's beyond change of power. We want to change the order in Nigeria. Um, like yesterday, I talked about some people clamoring for Buhari should resign. I said, no, he's not going to resign. That's not going to work for us. So today, I just want to elaborate a little bit more on these issues and explain the role of leadership. Spontaneity is great. You can get a lot of things done, but ultimately, we must create leadership from this. But more importantly, we must be ready to submit to this leadership. The 2019 elections, I said it in my book, Liberating Nigeria, uh, A Guide to Winning Elections. And it's on Amazon, several bookshops in Nigeria, booksellers, Glendora, also on Dylan Dotenji, RH, Roving Heights bookshops. I said that um, it's important to learn from older people. So I'm not one of those people that think that only the young people can do well. No, many of the young people in Nigeria that have had opportunities to rule or that have had opportunities have not done well. They've also been as corrupt, if not worse, than the older people. So I'm not talking about age here, but I'm explaining that it's important to be ready to submit to leadership. Before the 2019 elections, you had we couldn't even agree on a single candidate. And you had an Obi Ezekwesili who said she was going to bring about different people and create one. It didn't even work. Mogalu joined the contest. Eventually, he pulled out. Shawore was not involved. Um, and one of the reasons is that even Obi Ezekwesili doesn't command that respect. Doesn't People are not ready to submit to that leadership. She's not someone that can gather everybody together. The young people, no. Question: is there anybody like that in Nigeria? It's a difficult question to ask, but we have to find. For me, I see people like Femi Falana as the leader. I see him as my leader. I've watched him over the years. He understands the issues very well. He doesn't talk too much. He doesn't just abuse. He he suggests solutions. You read his write up. He's a lawyer, but you read some of his press statements. He's clearly explaining how he thinks XYZ can be fixed. Now, it doesn't mean he's correct all the time, but he's focused on solution. Okay, and you know that it's not ambitious. Now, I mean, Bitunde Bakari will have been a great leader like that, if not that he has ambition. So a lot of people are not going to work with him because of that. But before he became ambitious about, maybe before he became interested in presidency, it was also a rallying force, and we need that in Nigeria. In my book, because I just don't want to be talking about theory, I suggested four people in my book as people that the young ones have to reach out to for mentorship. And one of them is Aldo Ogbe. And the reason I mentioned Aldo Ogbe is he's a northern Christian. He's been PDP, APC, largely seen as a credible guy. I'm not saying it's perfect, but we have a lot to drink from him in terms of politics. Again, remember, my objective here is to explain that if we don't metamorphosize this movement into a single political movement, after 1 year, we'll look back and imagine that we did not achieve much. And even though we're going to have to be more creative in our political style, we also need to learn what politics is. Now, that's why I wrote this book, but we also need to drink from some older people. Outogbe was one of the people I mentioned, largely respected across the country, understand the issues in the core north, in the Christian north, in the southwest, everywhere. There's a lot to drink from him. Even if you have to get to meet him at night when his other people don't know, we have to drink from people like that. I mentioned someone like Shehu Sani. Now, some people may not agree, especially his governor Erufai. But if you study Shehu Sani very well, he was close to Gani Fawahimi. He was part of the people that fought for democracy. He went to Senate. He spoke truth to power. He was the first person that let us know how much they were receiving every month. He declared his assets, even at the time, lousy people like Erufai will not declare their assets publicly. He understands the divide. He's a Muslim from the north, but he understands the southwest very well. He understands the Boko Haram. If you remember when we had Boko Haram crisis years ago, when the first discussions came up about negotiating, he was one of the few guys that the Jonathan government worked with. That means he was even found credible by some of the Boko Haram guys, credible enough to say we can talk to this guy. Remember, some of the Boko Haram guys also mentioned Wole Soyinka. So before you start castigating the guy, Wole Soyinka was one of the people that was mentioned, by different groups because we were looking for credible, trusted people. So I also see that guy as somebody that we can drink from. And I'm deliberately mentioning names here because I don't want to just talk in an abstract way. It doesn't mean I'm perfect, but I want to suggest. So you can suggest your own, but let's stop saying natural leaders will emerge. It's not gonna work like that. Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Syria, even in places like Morocco, Bahrain, it didn't work like that. It didn't. What happens usually is you fight spontaneously, and the same bad people take advantage and they win elections again in 2023. If you're not ready to learn politics, that's what's going to happen. We fought a lot before 1999, and what happened? Oppressors won elections from 1999. So let's stop this nonsense that we don't need to learn politics. We don't need the politicians, or let's just get, even if you get Buhari out, you get him to resign, which I don't think is going to happen. Does that solve the problem? No, no. You have seen it. Are you going to get everybody out without a sovereign national conference? Are you going to ask for a coup? No. The resignation of the president doesn't even solve the problem. We want to change the order. And to change the order, we need political power. Political power is important. And my objective here is to give you information. Now, I don't have plans to run for office. I've written a 200-page book to explain how this can be done. I publish articles on newspapers. I talk to people in my own little capacity. But I'm saying, and I want to explain, and I'm going to mention two more names. So Shehu Sani is the second name after Adeogbe, because I feel we can drink from him again, because he understands everywhere. You cannot achieve progress without going with the North. Now, the third person I mentioned in my book was Tunde Bakare. I also believe that Tunde Bakare understands the issues. I know that he's ambitious. He wants to become president. But beyond that, he understands the issues. He's worked with the activists a lot. He has also worked with the politicians. He's worked with Buhari, Tinubu. He's worked with the Northerners. He gets it. We can drink a lot from him. We have to humble ourselves to drink a lot from Pastor Tunde Bakare if he's willing. And I think he never minds doing that. The fourth person I mentioned, trying to be balanced, was Willie Obiano, the governor of Anambra. And I mentioned him because I've studied all the governors. He's an example of a governor that was successfully fought against his godfather, and he's liked by his people. He's not like the Edo State governor who was threatened coming on TV to threaten people, to talk like a tout. No, the, Obiano went against his godfather, Peter Obi, in a civil way. He won the battle, defeated them in all elections, and the people love him. And to the best of my, again, it's not perfect. But when I look at the numbers, when I look at data, somebody paying salaries, still doing some infrastructure, and has that state, I think, has the least debt amount of debt in Nigeria. Now we need to give credit to Peter Obi. He started that nice policy, but Willie Obiano has gone a step further. He needs to do better. But it's an Igbo man that I think I have a lot of respect for. And I looked at it. I felt, okay, how do I balance it? I've suggested an Igbo man. Doesn't mean he's the most perfect, and I'm not even saying he's perfect. But we have a lot to learn from him. Sir, how did you fight against the Godfather? And you won without having to threaten people, without behaving the way Godwin Obaseki behaved. We can learn from him. He's working well even with the APC government. So he's an APGA governor, but he has learned how to negotiate with APC, with PDP. You know, now that's an Igbo person. I mentioned Shehu Sani because he's a northerner. He's a core northerner. He's a very liberal northerner who's liked by the Christians, who understands the issues in the north, and he is also close to the south. And I've mentioned Bakari because he's probably the only Yoruba person I mentioned that because he has tested politics. Again, I'm talking about drinking from their political knowledge. He's not just an activist. He's been with them and he has stories to share. Finally, I mentioned Audu Ogbe, a Christian northerner, because when you talk to northerners, it's important to learn from the core northerners, which are Muslim northerners, but it's also important to learn from the Christian minority northerners. And that's why I've suggested I'm not afraid to be wrong. I'm making suggestions. I don't want to just write a book and say, oh, let's create leaders. I felt this was important for me to suggest. And I even said, if not that Emeka Yauku, the former Commonwealth Secretary General, is, maybe it's very old now. He's also a guy, a very wonderful person we can drink from. He's not local politician, but if you listen to him well, he understands the issues. We now need, if we settle on ABCD as leaders, we now need to be ready to submit to them. For example, if I'm part of a group meeting with Audu Ogbe and Audu Ogbe said, okay, we're going to choose one person and you're going to trust me to help you to narrow down to one, we have to be ready to obey that person. If we start political parties now and in 2023 we have 20 young people that want to become president, do you think it makes sense for 20 people to go contest elections again? No, it doesn't make sense. We need to be ready to come together and narrow down to one candidate. And we need some leaders, some people that understand politics to provide that guidance. If you think you're going to rely on people like Obieze Kwesili or Patutomi or Daraba or those good people but who know very little about politics to help you narrow down, then you're wasting your time. We need to work with the politicians. Remember, we also need money. I said in my book and in several interviews on Channels newspaper, no, on Channels TV, Arise TV, that all over the world, good people necessarily don't win elections. But you have to find a way to 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 work with bad people. Good people have to find a way to work with bad people so that you can have a significant amount of good people in the kitchen. So eventually you will need money. You will take money from some bad people. It's going to happen. If you don't learn how to start working with bad people now, when that time comes, how are you going to do it? If you think you just want clean money, you won't get enough. Because how many people, maybe the percentage of clean money in Nigeria is very small. So you have to learn how to work with the good and the bad. Unfortunately, you have to learn how to work with the good and the bad to win elections. And that also means collecting money sometimes from people you don't like, you know. And I will say one other thing. So he had a Showore in 2019 who, and I think that's why I think he's learning his lessons now. You're against the church, you're against military, you're against nuns, you're against everybody. So who is going to vote for you? Is it the people in the diaspora? that don't have cards or understand how, or that have very little knowledge about Nigerian politics? No. You need to work with people. Sometimes work with NURTW people. You need to sometimes work with some pastors you don't like because you can get votes from their church members. I mean, I give an example in my book of a pastor, a popular pastor in Abuja. Like, I don't want to mention his name, but everybody knows him, who has been involved in many scandalous rape, disgusting cases. Let's say the man eventually, his church grows to 10 million people. I don't have plans to run election, but if I want to run, do you think I'm not going to sit down with that man and say, "Sir, I need your support"? I will. And if you want to run for office, you must be ready to sit down with that kind of man. As a pastor, he's a failure. He's a failure because if you are involved in multiple cases, rape cases, 10, 15, you're a failure. However, if you as a politician, you're interested in Christian votes, and that guy has 10 million votes under his kitty, you have to be ready to sit down with that man and say, "Sir, forget about that his scandals, and sit down with him, articulate your vision, and campaign for his support." That's what I'm talking about. But if you blame everybody, you hit everybody. You hit the churches, you hit the pastors, you hit politicians, you hit the military, you hit nuns, and you want to win elections. So who are the people that will vote for you? So I'm explaining this to young people that as we are going about this fantastic NSAS, we also need to discuss the politics, and how do we metamorphosize into a political movement. I started a website, liberatingnigeria.com, which is an offshoot from my book. And I said my vision is to enlighten, organize, and enlighten and organize 5 million first time voters by 2023. There has to be multiple groups like that. Everybody eventually coming under the same single umbrella. And when we identify the leaders, including older people, we must be ready to submit to them. If in 2022, this one person is identified as best candidate, we need to walk around. We need to support that candidate. We should not have 5, 10 young candidates. No, it should be one candidate that everybody will support against APC and PDP. So we must have a viable thought force, that can challenge the order, that can defeat the old order. And it's not about presidency. It can start from governor. If you win 2, 3 gubernatorial elections, and we win a couple of Senate seats for a start, we win maybe 10% for a start, that's a good starting point. Then we can begin to build finance. I don't really think we should start from presidency, but we need to start building political movement. Because go ask people in Egypt, the people who died, they, they were able to get Mubarak out. Or is the country better today? Because the young people were not able to organize themselves into a strong single political union that could defeat the old order. That's what I'm clamoring for. We need to organize. One more point. So somebody said that I mentioned um, I talked too much about files yesterday. What do I have? I said I'm mentioning files because I think that we need a face. We need eventually one, just starting from one leader. And the reason why I think Fowles stands above many other celebrities is because in Yoruba we say Onirundi, which means he has somebody that can maybe help him, and that's his dad, that can guide him, that can teach him, that can many of the letters he's writing, many of the points Fowles is making. You can really see that he's picking ideas from his dad, which is good. You need inputs from old people. Let's stop this nonsense that we can figure it out by ourselves. So he's an example of somebody that has a dad at home that can offer guidance. That's why I suggested we should have a face to this. But let me also make this very important point. You cannot go far without the support from the North. No. This whole thing has, I'm sure everybody knows that the core North is not in support of all this Aluta. It's Lagos, Abuja, and several states in the South. And when you go to Abuja, most of the people pushing are not northerners. So I want us to also understand that we cannot ultimately achieve great results without getting some buy-in from northerners. In the north, there are two major types of people: the rich and the poor. Very small percentage of middle class, and that makes it challenging for us. The middle class, it will have been easier for us to talk to because we all went to school. We understand issues. But the real people we need in the north are the talakawas. We need whoever is going to be a leader or the face of this movement to be ready to go to the north and speak to the talakawas. Imagine if we have the Almajiris on our side. Imagine if, as we're running this, the Kano is also shut down. Kaduna is shut down because the Almajiris are campaigning. The Almajiris are the Almajiris are campaign are also um, rioting, protesting like us. The country will be shut down, and we'll be able to achieve more. So this is great, but we need to do better with our communication with North. As long as this country is still one, and I think it's not going to change anytime soon, we cannot win elections without support from core North. And I'm not talking about Christian North, core North. So imagine a Christian North, than a Christian governor, Plateau State governor, is saying that we are fine with SARS. When he's saying that, it tells you that these guys are not with us. For me, we are one. So we need to do better discussing with the Talakawas. And how do we do that? You don't go to the north and talk to the Talakawas directly. You have to identify leaders, imams, um, uh, Quran chiefs. You have to identify those leaders in the north that can help us speak to the Talakawas. And that just further explains what I keep talking about, the role of leadership. You're not going to go to Kano, Kaduna, and just talk to Talakawas and they're going to listen. No, you have to identify their leaders and speak to them. When you identify their leaders and speak to them and convince them that we are together, we're all suffering together. If we get the Talakawas to our side, then we can compete. If we don't do that and we focus only on Lagos, Abuja, Ogun, and some states, we'll be chasing shadows. That's my view today. I think eventually the North and the South have to find a way. And I'm talking about, I don't want to use the word protesters, but the third force we're talking about must include people from all regions in Nigeria, broadly North and the South. And that's how we can compete. And one more thing I want to say, even when we don't win elections, um, if we can put up a good showing in 2023, then the politicians will take us seriously and they'll be ready to negotiate. Sometimes politics is not only about winning, but it's about doing so well that other politicians are taking you seriously. But if you're doing so badly, nobody's going to take you seriously. But if we can compete well, it's easier for us to be taken seriously and then we can negotiate better. I want to salute everybody that is out there, that is running around getting funding to provide food to people, to provide carnival style um, protest to people. I think those are the heroes. They're helping to keep this going. Because I was sympathizing at some point that, oh Jesus, how would people who survive daily, based on daily income, how will they continue? But I was impressed that some people have been creative enough to look for funds to provide food to people. That is fantastic. Nigeria will flourish again. I believe we can flourish together. And you can subscribe to our channel. We have other shows uh, in that we produce every week. So I just come on like this occasionally to express my views. I'm more of a writer, but I believe it's important for me to speak sometimes and hope I can provide knowledge to some people. Thank you very much.